Hi, everyone. As mentioned yesterday, CleanEquity is always looking to incorporate the 17 SDGs. This is why we are very pleased to welcome Edufront, representing SDG number 4, quality education. So, without further ado, please welcome Manfredi.
Thank you very much, Hannah. And thank you, everyone, for being here. And it's our immense honor and pleasure to sponsor this year's event and the opportunity to say a few words. And so here we go. So in the age of the Anthropocene, where we are now, humankind decides the future of the planet and of itself. And today, we hope that innovations and resourcefulness can resolve all our greatest problems. So how do we get more of it? Improve it, make it more widespread. In a word, education. The great uplifter of communities that it is, the path to realizing what makes us most human, but is also an area pregnant with imperatives. It is an imperative in our fight against environmental perils, where we need all of human potential and minds to work together to solve these problems. However, we are currently in a world where most of it remains unexpressed. Many environmental failures as well are failures of education. Consumer habits like diets and waste are well-known examples. But education is also an economic imperative. To make communities wealthier in a globalized age, the capacity to learn and produce the critical mass of skilled individuals is essential to sustainable prosperity. Inequality, likewise, will become ever more a bane on our societies. Not only the inequality of outcomes, but the inequality of opportunities. The distribution of knowledge, of jobs, of choice itself is highly dependent on educational dynamics. And failure to acknowledge or attend to these burgeoning issues will exacerbate the increasing strain and stress over our social fabrics. And finally, and perhaps most obviously, education is a moral imperative. For how can we possess human dignity in an increasingly sophisticated world without the ability to read, write, count, or more importantly, to learn and learn again? So where are these imperatives to be had? Where must we look to? Well, overwhelmingly the key is 85% of the human population, in particular the bottom 85%, those that are most disenfranchised, those that are most in need. And addressing education for them will be the key to our collective success as a global community. How important are they? How big of a challenge is this? Well, simply by the sheer numbers, the scale of things becomes readily apparent. By 2050, the UN estimates that 1 billion people will be part of this new 85%, in addition to what we have today. Some countries in particular will be unrecognizable. 300 million new people are expected in India. The population in Nigeria and Ethiopia will double to 400 and 300 million people respectively. It is imperative that education of today and tomorrow can be an order of magnitude better than yesterday's. And unfortunately, the challenges are great. School education, forming the bedrock of learning, is falling behind. Simply, the number of teachers isn't growing enough to meet the demands of all the students. In some countries, the numbers are stagnant. In some others, they are actually decreasing. Teacher training and quality, likewise, are not what they're supposed to be. The end result is that class sizes are increasing, teacher-student ratios are deteriorating, and this is having a material adverse effect on performances. Teachers that are already suffering from low productivity are spending, on average, a mere half of their time in contact with students. So what are we to do? Building new schools? If you don't have any teachers to fill them up, what use is that? Yet training more and better teachers is a chicken and egg problem. It is difficult, and its untangling might require decades that we might not have. Simply put, we must upgrade school learning and education. And going further still, it must be done in a way to be scalable, usable, and affordable, no matter the circumstances of the school. Sustainable adoption and use demands that immediate value be delivered to educators, students, and parents alike from the beginning. Fortunately for us, there is a well-attested silver bullet for handling all these problems, and this is personalized learning. Personalized learning is an approach to education that attends to the strengths, weaknesses, interests, and capacities of the individual student. And I would like to highlight 3 remarkable things about this approach. The first is the sheer magnitude of the improvements it can deliver. In fact, it produces an average of 2 standard deviations improvements. That means that 90% of students will now perform at what was the 80th percentile. Said another way, 70% of our students can become A students. Secondly, by focusing on the individuals, personalization levels the field of education, effectively cutting across race and class, because we have consistently seen greater improvements for the underprivileged, helping converge then on genuine equality of opportunity. This brings me to the third, and to me, the most remarkable aspect of personalized learning. It doesn't require a human teacher to be effective. A well-designed computer system with infinite attention to offer even the most reluctant of students achieves consistently the same results as human tutors. And this last part changes everything, because now we have a way to bring personalized learning to schools everywhere. Realizing such technology, in fact, is something that can finally be accomplished. And we have only now seen that great digital and internet revolution expand with massive speed, and adoption of smartphones and internet connectivity throughout the developing countries is moving apace every day. The cost of hardware, likewise, itself continues to decrease, creating a market even for the most price-sensitive actors. And finally, users worldwide have learned to use software in other parts of their lives. It is no longer a novelty. It is no longer an experiment. So what do we get when we pull all of these strings together? A platform for augmenting school learning by creating tools to assist every aspect of school life, building synergies between each one of them, and feeding them into a personalized AI tutor, we can achieve remarkable transformations at a scale we would not have thought possible until today. We unshackle teachers from the manual drudgery, giving them more time to focus on what they alone can do, what they are most special. Interact with a human that is the student. We give them the tools to improve their teaching and benefit from the experience of educators worldwide, and we ensure that teaching materials are abundant and used where they will have the most impact. And most importantly, all of this can be deployed and given out at a price that everyone will be able to afford. Already now, systems such as these are being used from Ghana to India, from urban, wealthy schools to the most rural establishments. They use the tools they want most in the way that works for them, sharing knowledge, resources, courses, and their experiences worldwide and one another. This is what we are achieving at Edufront. So as we continue to grow, improve, expand, I look forward to the day a student empowered by our work will come and present in events such as these, so that we will be able to invest in them, and them in turn to others. Thank you very much. So now I believe if we have any questions, I kept my few remarks, I hope, short and brief. If anyone has any questions or just has experiences to share, please come up now.
I'll just start off with a comment and a question. Obviously, I think teaching education has been around as long as we have, you could say, and obviously very traditional and set in its ways, you would think. And maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. Obviously, of how we can grow and improve there's always room there. But how's the reaction you've found from schools, from governments as well? Obviously, education around the world can be put on in different ways. So what's the reaction been, and how's it been trying to work with the schools and governments?
So education is a remarkable field because it is one of the few universal ones. Education fundamentally is about communication and interaction between human beings. And there's something that is truly universal to every government, country, or culture in the world. It must be just that. So therefore, interacting with different actors from around the world and catering to their own needs is an 80-20 problem. 80% of what they do is common to all of them. 20% makes it special and local, forms a core of their identity. By creating systems that speak to that 80% and can be built in such a way as to do that extra 20% to make it perfect for them is really the key to this endeavor. But so far, what we have observed is simply that schools and governments have been far happier to adopt this than we would have thought. We work predominantly in developing nations, and the need has become so intense that as long as you are ready to show that your systems can make a meaningful impact to them in a way that they would want to see it, and they understand it, and let them drive it, these successes have been reached and exceeded. Yes?
Sorry, could you please come up to the microphone just so everyone online can also hear the question?
However, Connor, please say it, I'll just repeat it into the mic. So the question is whether education is about finding a job or it's about knowing. I would say that education is all of those things, but everything is connected. Education is about learning. It is about giving the individual the tools to make connections, about expressing themselves and apprehend their world and their circumstances as best they can. So yes, school and education will teach you a trade, a skill, basic knowledge, But that all comes within the capability of interacting in a society and a community that is always evolving. And there is no universal answer. There is a lot of grayness. And therefore, the best educational tools that we can provide teach students to learn and adapt and evolve, whilst at the same time providing the content that is situationally or contextually needed, which are usually set by governments through curriculums and so on and so forth. But the education power that I was discussing before, this uplifter of communities, is the more fundamental one. And that is the one that is really taught at school through interaction. The first community you really join.
We had a question come through online. Could this AI methodology, could it be abused by other parties if they got hold of it in teaching?
The moral questions of what is done through digital and for education technology as a whole has been with us as far back as we've had writing. Education technology, and we can acknowledge that AI, like anything in society, is taking things to another level. So the potential for abuse exists, but from a certain perspective, that is always about the human actors behind it. Tools within the apparatus of the less scrupulous have always been effective. And I would put the further point that by giving platforms that are open and focus on the individual, in the same way that the psyche and soul of the individual is inviolable, so can these systems develop an aspect to this. Then again, philosophers will argue for a long time, we are a software company, and there is a lot of need out there that needs to be met, and this solution can radically transform all of them. So for now, we will proceed as we are, and then the time may come that changes might be required. Then as a society, I'm sure we can come together and make a decision. Anyone else? Connor.
Thank you, Manfredi. I think, as Mungo said, and as Hal alluded to, adding this to the CleanEquity program this year was very relevant. And, it's the people of the future and educating them that will make the changes and hopefully lead to better things.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a very lovely day.
So, moving on to the next special address. So Earth Capital, we know very well as Innovator Capital. We share an office with them in London. They've been attending CleanEquity for many years. Gordon, their CIO, is a champion with a unique track record in investing in sustainability, over 30 years, with an IRR of 29%. And they have a special presentation prepared for you today.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for inviting me to CleanEquity Monaco. It's a pity you can't be there because it's such a wonderful location. But I'd like to be talking to you now about Earth Capital Holdings and what we've been doing in the impact investing marketplace. And you'll also hear from a number of my colleagues. So today we'll be talking to you about impact investment, where we see the opportunities and the synergy between climate change and the Sustainable Development Goals. I'll let you read that bit at your leisure. So as we know, COVID-19 has caused us to present to you in this way, and it's also had a fairly dramatic effect across the world. It's identified those sustainable businesses that are more resilient to business risks, but it's really only a precursor to the greater effect that climate change is going to have, which is mankind's greatest challenge. We believe that both climate change and the SDGs offer an investment opportunity as well as a challenge. And it's across these opportunities that we think as investors, you really need to see the measurement on how sustainable your investment attitude and your investment dollars have managed to be able to achieve the sorts of returns that we seek to make. So we have come across and we have created a resulting investment process that both uses the benefits of SDGs and looks to realise the objectives of the Paris Accord. We've been managing money across this process for around 10 years. So let me tell you a little bit about Earth Capital Holdings. Our foundations come from a family office that was founded by Stephen Lansdowne and myself, and it includes investors such as Lord Stanley Fink. The group focuses on impact investing across PE growth, infrastructure, food and water, and yielding energy efficiency. And we started, as we said, in 2008. Earth Dividend and our global network are our key differentiators because we're able to help businesses using an industrialist approach to business growth. Since we started, we've now grown our assets under management to $1.7 billion, both in listed and unlisted funds. And we see that ESG is changing the face of finance, and we are financing that change. As you can see, the other person on my slide here is Richard Barrett, who is our head of sustainability. He'll be talking to you shortly about how we managed to use Earth Dividend to not only enhance our investment program, but at the same time to improve sustainability throughout the piece. We have a global group in the key markets across the world, and as you can see, our 1.7 billion investment capability covers and spans the world with offices in North, South America, across Europe, Africa, and Asia. And the scope of our funds range from PE growth through to infrastructure and energy efficiency. We focus on energy, food and water, the climate nexus. As we know from the UN statistics that in 2050 we'll have another 2.1 billion people with us in our world. And that means that there's going to be a demand for 55% more water, 80% more energy and 60% more food. And we believe that the interaction between energy, food and water is where there is an incredibly large opportunity for investment. Impact investing shows a global opportunity. And what we believe is that if you look at the developed market, there's a tremendous opportunity to transform through resource and energy efficiency. Market disruption is coming about by digitization, and there has certainly been a shortage of growth capital for hard technology companies. In the developing world, it's completely different. There's a dramatic need for energy, infrastructure, technology transfer, and agriculture. But in that world, there is an opportunity to leapfrog technology, very similar to what we've seen in Africa with regard to the telecoms industry, where mobile telephony has managed to provide the opportunity for both education, banking, and really opening up the opportunity to the local population. The biggest issue with developing the world is the management skills and governance, which are always at a premium. And we have people on the ground investing in the locations where we would like to allocate capital. Sustainability is core to our approach. We think the private investment enables you to have better data and control and influence. But the key is ultimately successful investment. And we have experienced teams close to the companies and the assets. We have understood where capital shortage sits and believe we can bring the opportunity to buy into businesses and then finally exit through proven low-cost capital exits. And at the same time, we really focus on customer pain and solving that opportunity through the investments we make and through our network of investment teams. So let me tell you about how ECH is focusing its investment in impact. To start with, we've had a strong track record in the impact investing area, where over the past 34 years, we've made a 28.5% IRR. But what's really interesting is that has increased by 1.6 times when focused on impact investment strategies. So the 4 areas we have focused on is through the Nobel Sustainability PE Growth Fund, which is focusing across the world on PE growth, sustainable technologies, where we bring our tech transfer capabilities to play to aid and assist those businesses to grow in different markets. The second approach is in renewable energy infrastructure in both Africa and Asia, where through a sister company, Berkeley Energy, we've been developing 600 megawatts of power with ambitions to be over 1 gigawatt of operating assets in the next 3 years. In food, water and energy development, we've been particularly focused on providing food security in Africa, and using that know-how, we've moved it on into the Middle East. And finally, from early days of creating a standard LPGP in focusing on energy efficiency in the UK, we've taken that vehicle and listed it on the London Stock Exchange and grown it by a factor of 4 in the past 18 months. So very pleased with that. So as we say, we are a PE-focused, unquoted investment manager, but we have 2 real key differentiators here, where our industrialist approach to business growth using technology transfer and our network to aid and assist businesses to grow across the world, solving customer pain. And secondly, our sustainability process incorporates climate considerations using our Earth dividend, and we'll talk a lot more about that in the very near future. So as you know, the Sustainable Development Goals for 2030 are to cover 17 key areas of focus, right? Ranging from no poverty through to peace and justice across institutions. So covering not just society and governance, but including education and gender equality. Our focus on opportunities is also recognised by the Business and Sustainable Development Commission. It's identified both food and agriculture, energy and materials, health and well-being, and cities to where they see the 60 biggest market opportunities in delivering those development goals. And we have shown, we have seen that the research shows that this could be worth as much as $12 trillion a year, which makes it an enormous opportunity for investment. When putting Earth Capital together, Steve Lanson and I recognized it was really important to have some form of measurement that you could tell investors how their dollars were going to show an improvement in sustainability. I'm pleased to say that the Earth Dividend Scorecard does just that. It aligns itself with the SDGs and it covers 5 key areas and 6 tests per area, so 30 tests in total, across natural resources, ecosystem services, pollution, social and economic contributions, and society and governance. You're now going to hear from my Chief Sustainability Officer, Richard Burrett, about how the Earth Dividend is used across our investment portfolio and how we use it to benefit the sustainability of all of our portfolio companies.
The Earth Dividend is a proprietary tool that we've developed to help us assess, manage and then report on the impacts that our investments have from a sustainability perspective. Increasingly, we're seeing investors wanting to understand the sustainability impact of their investments. I think that trend is going to continue. I think the launch of the Sustainable Development Goals is going to increasingly get investors to think about the SDG impact of what they're doing. We look at 5 different dimensions of sustainability, one being natural resources, one being ecosystem service impacts, one being pollution. Then we look at societal and economic impacts and also governance issues. When we're looking to make a new investment, we will internally assess the earth dividend of the company that we're looking at before making an investment. We will only invest in companies where we can deliver a net positive earth dividend within a 2-year period. Once we've invested in a company, we then do the earth dividend annually with the management of the investee company. And we try to identify areas where we think there's an opportunity to add improvements. We look at the whole value chain of the business, not just their own operations, but also the product use and end of life, and also the supply chain of the business. And in recent earth dividends, we've picked up issues that have emerged from the supply chain, perhaps where a company doesn't have as much transparency and overview of employee working conditions in their supply chain, perhaps where they have an over-reliance on plastics or other materials, where we can potentially work in product redesign to make them less dependent on those materials. They can look at the earth dividend output knowing that the indicators are based on current best practice of sustainability in those different areas and feel confident that they're actually doing meaningful things. Seeing the riots in France over an attempt to put tax on fuel, I mean, the transition to a low carbon economy also has to be a just transition. So we need to think about the societal and economic impact of these issues as well, not just the environmental impact of them. You will never deliver genuine sustainable development unless you understand the total impact of everything you're doing. It's not good enough just to target positive impact in 1 or 2 areas. You have to understand the total footprint of the business. The Earth Dividend approach is unique to Earth Capital. It's a methodology that we developed internally. It's trademarked. It's a unique tool in terms of assessing, managing and reporting on the footprint of businesses.
So where does the Earth Dividend sit in the responsible investment journey to full impact investing? Well, from a financial returns point of view, you can be looking at investing without ESG or with a positive or negative screening. And from an environmental and social returns, you could look at ESG not for profit or ESG with unproven returns. Where we see the Earth Dividend sits is impact investing with the full ESG integration, maximizing financial returns without giving up social and economic and environmental returns. Right. So let's talk a little bit about Earth Dividend and how the scorecard works. As we said, there are 30 tests. We use those tests as both indicative, positive, neutral, and negative. And for us to invest, every investment has to have a net positive contribution to sustainable development. We take a 360-degree holistic view of impact, and therefore that looks wider than ESG factors. It includes looking at the supply chain arrangements for each individual business and end of life. And the example you see here in terms of the graphics show where positive and negative scores have been maintained for this particular company and shows that there is a positive opportunity. We then review each year and look at updating annually an improvement plan for each investment so as to make it more sustainable. Now, long-term reasoning for all of this is because we believe the more sustainable a business is, the greater value it will achieve. The Earth dividend is totally integrated into our investment process, both through the investment themes that we cover, that you've heard of previously in this presentation. We integrate, as you've also heard, into the process, the Earth dividend, to identify those risks in the business value chain and how we can best manage the business in the future to create additional value. The one great advantage of PE, private equity, is the fact that you can influence the business activity. And whilst we take significant stakes, we also share those with management. In addition, it's really important to show that as an investor, we're influencing that investing landscape. How we're contributing to the sustainable investment best practice, and how we're actually delivering on behalf of investors what they're seeking to see happen in sustainability. And on top of all of that, as you've heard from Richard Burrett, that we have an independent sustainability council that looks at the way in which we go about this process and ensures that we are doing what we say in a proper and professional way, and at the same time providing us with up-to-date knowledge from their sustainability backgrounds to enable us to improve our Earth dividend over time. So what do we mean by sustainable investment? As you've heard, there are 5 different sectors that we look at: natural resources, ecosystem services, pollution, social and economic contribution, and society and governance. And what we seek in each one of those is very much commercial value drivers. So for instance, in natural resources, we look at the water use or efficiency of energy inputs, the efficient use of raw materials. And what we're seeking to do in all cases is to reduce cost, increase productivity, and become more resilient in terms of our supply chains. If I take pollution as an example, we look at atmospheric emissions, we look at effluent discharge, waste disposal management. And we look to, again, from a commercial value driver point of view, to be effective with management's company, reducing the impact of pollution across its entire value chain, and also looking for mitigation and litigation and remedial costs in the long run. So having talked to you about one of our differentiators, the second differentiator is our industrial approach to business growth. What we like to do is to seek out customer pain before we make an investment, and then find the technology that solves that customer pain. We do that through our technology transfer platform, which is in multiple markets across the USA, Europe, Africa, and Asia. We have experienced managers that focus on solving customer pain in those locations. And we've built industrial relationships across Asia, in the US, and in Africa. We have built capital and industrial relationships throughout the world, and I'm particularly proud of the relationships we've built in China, through Guangdong, Shandong, and Chengdu, where we are seeking to take technologies into the country to aid and assist their program of becoming more sustainable. So I'm now going to hand over to Dr. Simon Crook, who's going to tell you about some of the exciting investments we've made in the energy marketplace.
There's a huge amount of potential in the Philippines. In the last 10 years, it's really boomed. There's been a lot of investment, a lot of development across different sectors. That activity needs renewable power.
The Fesi wind turbine project's a 16 megawatt first phase, consisting of 8 turbines, 2 megawatts each. It has 3 stages, and the 3 stages will eventually be 48 megawatts, depending on power takeoff and grid stability. It's 2 hours southwest of Manila, on the island of Mindoro, and above the town of Porto Galera.
I originally came here in 2013, and the day that I first came to the site, there was lots and lots of wind and a very steep hill, which allowed me to see the extent of the challenge of the project, but also its opportunity.
It's in difficult terrain, it's very steep, we also get a lot of fog and wind, hence it's suitable for a wind farm.
There are trees that are impacted by the construction of the road. So to be able to mitigate that, we have our tree nurseries here.
We're in the vicinity of 120,000 tree seedlings have been replanted, more than was cut down, and we've planted something like 170-odd thousand vetiver plants.
It is within an indigenous people area, and whenever you have people that are very attached to the land, you have some cultural aspects that needs to be preserved, then we have to take very special care.
The most important thing is constant communication with the community. We have also constructed houses.
Maganda naman po at nagkaroon po ng trabaho yung asawa ko. Saka yun nga po, pinagawa ng bahay.
It's been a priority to hire the locals.
We've had up to 560 people employed, and many of those have been employed from the Biclayan region.
Bali nga ho, nakakatulong sa amin, unang-una ho sa trabaho. Halos lahat nagkatrabaho sa amin, ang mga katutubo na talagang nangailangan sila ng mga trabaho.
Siyempre po, yun po ang matagal po naming hinahangad na magkaroon ng kuryente dito sa aming komunidad.
The turbines are now standing. We're very shortly to energize, and with its very, very high generating performance, it'll have a positive impact on the electricity generation in the area.
Thank you, Gordon. As Gordon said, my name is Dr. Simon Crook, and I focus on energy investments within our portfolio. Today, I'd love to talk to you about two case studies involving energy. The first case study is about a wind turbine project in the Philippines. It's been developed by one of our sister companies, Berkeley Energy, and it involves wind turbines, as I said, in the Philippines. Financial close was reached in early 2019, and the investment totaled $34 million. The first turbines were 8 2-megawatt turbines, and they came from a Siemens company called Gamesa. The power will be sold to Ormico, which is a Philippine power company, and the project's going to bring lower cost power, displacing diesel gensets, and will also add additional capacity. On top of that, it will reduce the subsidies that government has to pay in support of diesel. The project is going to be expanded in two further phases. First, by adding a battery to provide backup when the wind isn't blowing, and then a further 10 megawatt of turbines next year. The second project I'm going to talk to you about is Project Bioco. The UK bioenergy sector is already large. It's tripled in size since 2008 and already provides over 11% of the UK's electricity and is set to expand. The picture shows one of our bioenergy projects, an anaerobic digestion plant located on the Isle of Wight off the south coast of England. And it's one of 4 bioenergy assets that we own. Now, the bioenergy sector suffers from lots of orphan plants owned by individual investors, and a lot of those plants are operated suboptimally. Now, what we want to do is build a company that can consolidate first our own assets and then move out into the sector and consolidate further assets. So we're taking our 4 assets as shown on the table, we're consolidating them into one company, Bioco, later this year. And then we're also consolidating the management team so they can operate all the assets as one. The focus early next year will be on value-adding projects, which are already planned and budgeted for. And then later next year and through into 2022, we're going to acquire some of those orphan assets and build what we believe is a company worth between 50 and 100 million. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce you to Brian Lamar.
The fund's investment themes hit two big buckets: resource efficiency and clean energy. One of the investments we've made through the fund is in Botswana, called Noka Farm. Noka Farm actually produces enough vegetables to feed 15% of the country's population. But not only do we just look at farming with that business, we take a holistic approach, not just to outworker programs, but also waste management, and energy production. So we take this view and I believe that you're able to move this type of tech capability, certainly know-how, into different other environments. So what we do at the farm is we take the waste, turn it into gas, turn that gas into electricity, and at the same time we run a solar park off the farm on land that isn't really suitable for farming. So we believe that opportunity is repeatable around the world, not least of all in Africa, but also in China, where we were able to export that know-how and knowledge to that market.
Thank you, Simon. I'm Brian Lamar. I'm the CEO of Earth Capital Africa, based in Gaborone, Botswana. I'm very excited to be given this opportunity today to talk to you about our investment themes in Botswana. Noka Farm, our Francestown-based subsidiary, is looking to develop sustainable farming operations. In recent years, we've seen a dramatic decline in rainfall, erratic rainfall, and an increase in pest infestations. Local farmers are completely dependent on rain-fed open field farming strategies. We believe there's a significant opportunity to leapfrog technology. How do we do this? We're looking at employing modern state-of-the-art greenhouse technologies in which we can control both the climate and use sophisticated drip irrigation systems to dramatically reduce our water consumption. Trials at the farm over the last 18 months resulted in a 50% reduction in water, and coupled that with 40 to 50% increase in our yields is a significant business opportunity. Energy security is another key element. Currently, Botswana is importing 100% of the energy we use. There is one coal-fired power station in the country, but this can only accommodate around 25% of our total demand. This places the farm in a very challenging position. We cannot afford to be unable to irrigate our crops due to shortages of power. Therefore, we took the decision some time ago that we would use renewable energy as the solution. We're effectively creating an oasis of self-sufficiency, utilizing modern technologies on the one hand, coupled with sustainable energy on the other. This is a very exciting project, both for Earth Capital and for the country as a whole. Phase one of the project will see 2 hectares of greenhouses erected, and this will be driven by 1 megawatt of solar power. We're only the 3rd company in the country to be issued with a generating license. Phase 2 will see an additional 6 hectares of greenhouses added, giving us the potential to service 30% of the Botswana market. From our trials, we saw that the quality was significantly improved, and this was a very attractive proposition for the local retailers. On the energy side, phase 2 of our project will see increased development from 1 megawatt to 30 megawatts. This will be provided only for the expansion, not only for the expansion of the farm, but also for the neighbouring countries and our neighbours in the region. We're very excited about these opportunities, and the $40 million that we're looking to place in Botswana will not only create a significant number of jobs, but it will significantly enhance the reputation of the company. Botswana as a country is very well placed to take advantage of these challenges and opportunities. The country is renowned for good governance, a stable economy, and a workforce that is highly educated. The African population is set to grow by more than 100% over the next 20-25 years. This will see an increased demand for energy and food. Therefore, the company is well placed to take advantage of these opportunities and ultimately provide a significant return for our investors and bring benefits to not only the people of Botswana, but to the African continent as a whole. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and it gives me great pleasure now to hand over to my colleague, Avans Bezaidenote. Thank you very much.
So one of the investments we've made in water efficiency is in a company called Propelair. Propelair has invented a new toilet, and that toilet flushes 1.5 litres of water, which is different to a normal traditional toilet, which uses approximately 9 litres. The Propelair products sold into industrial uses, particularly in motorway service stations nationwide, banks, and in restaurant chains, and actually finding its way into foreign countries as well. In particular, we've been selling the product in South Africa, where there's been some massive water problems, particularly in the Cape Town region. Most recently, we brought an investor into the company that could assist us in the South African market. Clearly, anywhere south of the equator is suffering from water problems. And Propelair is a really good, efficient methodology of saving water. Because around about 84% is saved in both energy production and in water usage. Propelair's product is a really commercial product. The reason why it makes sense is because through saving in water, you're able to repay and recover the cost of creating a Propelair toilet in any time between 18 months and 3 years. It's a world-beating technology, and we're really pleased to have been invested in it.
Thanks, Brian. Hi, everyone. I'm Edufront Bezaidenote. I'm the investment director at Earth Capital, and I have responsibility for looking after our water investments, which includes being the non-executive director on portfolio company Propelair. I'd like to share my screen with you now and talk you through a bit about our investment in Propelair. As you saw in the video, Propelair is a highly innovative new toilet, currently focused on the commercial market and is rolling out across South Africa and the United Kingdom at the moment. With every flush, 84% less water is used and 80% less energy, meaning that the overall carbon footprint of each building is improved as well. Another feature getting a lot of attention in the current pandemic is the sealing toilet lid. Every flush with its sealed lid means 95% less viruses and germs are airborne in the cubicle. The company has been very good about making sure that all of its patents are in place on a global basis and in multiple markets. And we are looking to put this out around the world with the help of Earth Capital. The toilet is currently being installed in shopping malls, supermarkets, universities, and now in the Earth Capital offices as well. In 2019, the company raised $3 million to fund its growth plans, and we're currently now just closing a further round, which again has been led by Earth Capital and with further investment from the Nobel Sustainability Fund. So thank you very much for listening, and if there is any more information we can give you about Propelair, please do let us know. And now I'm going to pass you back to Gordon.
So in summary, I'd like to start by saying thank you to my investment colleagues who have explained some of the exciting investments that we're making towards our impact strategy. Earth Dividend provides a holistic approach to SDGs and goes beyond ESG. We use an independent advisory council to ensure compliance, focus and innovation. And we believe the initial investments we make justifies investments and helps to contribute towards sustainability whilst we own those businesses. We believe the scorecard provides a really understandable measurement calculation for investors. We believe our industrial approach not only solves international customer pain, but adds value to the process of investment. We focus on SDGs, and we believe all of this leads to higher returns. Thank you for listening and watching our presentation. Should you want to make contact with us, you can get in touch through LinkedIn, our website, or you can come to me direct. Thank you.
Up next, we have the award ceremony with His Highness Prince Albert II of Monaco, which will be starting shortly.